So I'm thinking,
Like drinking caps or anything.
how does that work? How can I? Yeah, I was like, how can I unplug my refrigerator at my house?
I think it was. I think it.
Like, why is she telling me that?
I know when it dropped on the floor, it had a cool ring.
Because she's being screwed.
She she doesn't want to celebrate. She's like, shut it all off. Just shut it all off.
And we're coming to get your cords, your extension cords.
1 minute.
And I didn't bring water, and I don't think I have cough drops. So if any, I might have some mints.
I
if
have
did.
gum.
No, you
I
don't
do.
want me to chew gum on TV.
The
That
gum
would be
might
bad.
work.
It's not even pleasant when
Okay,
I'm not
here's
on
the
TV.
gum if you need it. She has no cough drops and no virus.
I'm like, I don't think I brought anything.
I
Yeah, you
brought
might be
in
like
a.
pulling out the straw and passing
I
it.
can't believe I.
You and Tom can thumb wrestle who has to pass their
I know.
drink if I start hacking.
Yeah.
Tom, you haven't drunk out of that. Give it to Tammy.
It's on the screen.
Here, let me have it.
I know, but he does every other week.
Sorry,
Do you
Jerry, I
remember-
get
do
you.
you
I,
remember-
Too
Do you
bad.
remember the time
I,
there were cups
and
set
you can
out?
just have it.
There were cups set out, and there were pitchers, those pitchers of water, and they've been sitting out from a city council meeting for.
Just full
And
of
Ian
us.
Hart poured herself, and she's like, I don't think
Yes.
this is. They had been sitting there for quite a while. Like, yeah, less of that story. Don't drink out of the.
Right now, it's not going to drink out of this water anyway.
Right.
Ting towers.
Yeah, we don't need that.
Holy cow, look at that.
It's fancy. Yeah. Good evening, and welcome to the Muscatine Community School District Board of Education for Monday, December 11th. Madam Secretary, would you take the roll and help us determine a quorum, please?
You bet. Director Bauer, DeBeat,
Here.
Drava,
Here?
Finn, Mather, McCarter,
Here.
Wildermuth.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you. If you would all stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Welcome to our media representatives that are in the audience, as well as all of our visitors. It's nice to see the chambers full this evening. The next item on our agenda is our student council report. I see three eager ladies.
Okay, so,
If you pull that microphone down, it'll come to you, and then we can all hear you. Oh, perfect.
all right. So this is actually a really exciting week for our MHS students because our student council has put together a happiness week before finals. So basically what we have going on is today we had hot cocoa and tea bags passed out during lunch. We had our little therapeutic rock painting station and other different crafts that our students could do during lunch, and we also had baked goods passed out during lunch. And all throughout the week, we are also going to have positive quotes displayed on our new TV to kind of uplift our students, and we will also be having music corners so that the local musicians at MHS get a chance to participate and they can just play music and kind of make everyone feel more comfortable. And also on Wednesday, something that's I feel like is gonna be a really big hit with the students is the teachers are gonna be able to bring in their dogs if they would like, and student council is gonna be able to take their dogs out when they need them to, so everything will be taken care of, but it'll just be a nice way to have everyone kind of have a nice little de-stressor before finals. And that's just our main goal with this, is to make sure that our students start to feel more comfortable before finals and start to just kind of relax themselves, because this is a time of the year when everyone really builds up stress, so we think that it's important to kind of relax them. So.
Okay, I'm Tamara Garrido, and I'm going to talk about what we've raised and what events are going to happen in the future. So Mr. Muscatine, the class can drive and can ball raised over $3,000 and 600 cans to support the local Salvation Army, food pantry, and MCSA. We are also currently in the process of finalizing Santa letters for 24 elementary school classrooms in the district. And we are starting sign-ups for Senior Survivor that are going on now till January 5th. Senior Survivor will take place this year during the last week of February. And then our Winter Thaw Dance is coming up on the 20th of January to raise money for prom. And we have our Bowls of Hunger on the 26th of January also.
Hi, I'm Sarah Walsh. I don't usually present at these. Usually it's for the kids. I'm one of the student council advisors this year. And I'm actually here because of something that was just sent to me on Friday. And that is a proposal from the Merrill Hotel and Conference Center for potentially hosting prom this year. We were lucky enough to have Rachel, the other advisor, myself, and our leaders of student council go and tour the Merrill a couple weeks ago, and we had a couple meetings with them, and they were nice enough to send us a proposal for prom. I have sent that proposal to Lisa Mosier-Bunn, and if you guys wanted to see that, she has that, or I can give it to you in case you wanted to vote on that, and it needed to be something that the board needed to vote on this year as a potential option for prom. We personally like it because it's supporting the community, and the kids really like it because it's not in a school. and so it's definitely an option that we're on our end wanting to potentially pursue and see what the board thinks as well. So thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for the student council before they sneak away? All right, ladies, you're off the hook. Good luck with finals this week.
Thank you.
I bet you're headed right home to study and go to bed early every night this week. The next thing we have on our agenda is our employee recognition for the month of December, and Becky Witchers is going to hand those out.
Yes. So it is my honor to talk about these individuals that are in the room. So if Jennifer Haig could please come up. Jennifer is a third grade teacher at Mulberry Elementary. She was nominated by Melania Kennedy, and she says this: Mrs. Haig is an amazing teacher. She goes above and beyond to help her students, which one of her students happens to be my son, for the second time in his elementary days. She is upbeat, outgoing, and always has a smile on her face. My son loves her and was so excited to get her as his teacher again this year. She is always making sure her students do their best and always making the parents aware of schooling. We love Mrs. Haig. Thank you. Congratulations. Kelly Peterson, come on down. Kelly is a second grade teacher at McKinley Elementary, and she was nominated by Savannah Plank. She was my daughter's second grade teacher last year. My daughter has always struggled with school and has since been diagnosed dyslexic. Kelly went above and beyond last school year to help her succeed and has continued to be an advocate for her special education this year. Steve Preston. Steve is the custodian at McKinley Elementary, and he was nominated by Mrs. McConaughey. I would like to nominate Steve Preston for this award. Steve goes above and beyond for all students and staff at McKinley and always does it with patience, a positive attitude, and a kind word. The kids lovingly refer to Mr. Preston as Steve. On a typical day, you can find Steve pushing his cart surrounded by students, telling him stories about their weekend, their pets, and other exciting news they can't wait to share. He always takes the time to listen to each one of them. He completed test talks with students, helping them set goals for their learning. He makes a difference to the kids that sometimes struggle throughout their day. They will work to earn time to be with Steve. No matter how many times Steve is asked to set up tables, chairs, clean up after their special projects, or other events, Steve does it with a smile and a kind word. He always takes such pride in his work, and it shows throughout the building. Steve has mastered the art of building relationships and making others feel valued and respected. We feel very lucky to have him at McKinley School. Thank you. Woodward. Brett is a math teacher at Muscatine High School, and he was nominated by Tarania Matthews. I think Brett would be a good nominee because he goes above and beyond for his students to make sure they understand. If we don't understand something, he makes a way that we will. He will sit there and work with you until you get it right. Brett has never let me give up and always makes sure everyone that wants to do well succeeds. He is encouraging and makes math not so boring. He always makes sure he can find different ways to make us understand to everyone's ability as an individual. Thank you. And we also have Andrew Dobeck. Andrew couldn't be here this evening, but I would like to read what Leslie Eichelberger says. And Andrew teaches, he's a math teacher at West Middle School. My daughter enjoys heading to pre-AP math with Mr. Dobeck, which is no small achievement, as she claims that math is not her favorite subject. I love when she comes home with stories of how their Cubs Cards rivalry has made her giggle, but what I appreciate more is the open communication he has with parents. I've gotten several emails already this year to update me on what is going on in the classroom and how to help encourage our students at home. When I reply to thank him, I always get a note right back giving me a personalized update on my child. I've also noticed him at every home volleyball game helping out with scorekeeping. His enthusiasm for our kids can't be missed, and I appreciate it very much. So thank you to the board for recognizing these fine teachers.
Thank you, Becky, and congratulations to all our December winners. Next on our agenda is our Citizens Speak portion of the agenda. This is the opportunity, if we have anyone in the audience that would like to approach the board on a topic, you're welcome to do so. We ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes and start off with your name and address. We are not allowed to, through board policy, have conversation during Citizens Speak as far as address a topic, but we are happy to hear from you. All right, I don't think we have anybody for Citizens Speak. After employee recognition, one of the best things that we also get to do on our agenda is to hear from our students. And we love to be able to do that. So I'm going to introduce Jonathan Thoma, who is the director of the orchestra program at Muscatine High School, amongst the other many amazing things that we have going on in our district. It's the largest orchestra in the state of Iowa, I believe, as well. And I had to make sure that I slipped that in there because it's quite an accomplishment. So, and it looks like you might have some students that are going to play for us this evening. Yes, we do. We would love that.
So while they're getting set up, I'll update you on our department. As Mrs. Draba was saying, I'm Jonathan Thoma, and I am the orchestra director at Muscatine High School, and I'm excited to share some of our successes of the past month. As you have seen from the past visits by my colleagues, we've been a busy department over at MHS. The entire music department was active last Friday, performing around town for the holiday stroll. We had an orchestra concert this last Tuesday evening, featuring our freshmen, our Philharmonic, and our symphony orchestras. Tonight, our freshmen and concert choirs are performing songs of the season at their holiday concert, accompanied by pictures of a special project they have been working on with Senior Resources of Muscatine. The MHS choirs raised money to provide gift baskets for 4 local senior citizens. They were delivered last Thursday, along with some caroling. The band performed its first pep band of the season and are looking forward to having Dr. Reby and Mrs. Drawbaugh join them on January 5th. But if that doesn't work in your schedule, they will hold spots for you any Friday that you have time. The band will have its concert at 3 p.m. on Saturday, December 16th in the MHS auditorium. They would love to have you join them. The MHS band will also be taking 18 students to audition for the District Honor Band on January 6th. We hope that the next visit they'll be able to include some results from that day. The a cappella choir, treble choirs, and the chamber orchestra will perform our Winter Glow concert this Friday evening at St. Mary and Matthias Church. That's at 7:30 p.m. this Friday. This concert will feature each of the ensembles I just mentioned, as well as some collaborative works between choir and orchestra. including some caroling that will involve the audience. This is the first time that the orchestra and choir have collaborated since I've been here in 2012. I think maybe it happened one other time. We're very excited to present this special concert, and we invite you and all of the public to join us for that event. The MHS Band and Orchestra directors will be attending the Midwest Band and Orchestra Clinic from December 20th through the 22nd. That event takes place in Chicago and draws band and orchestra directors from all over the world. The event includes seminars pertaining to the music classroom, ranging from literature choice to specific instrument pedagogy and classroom management. There are also vendors from all over the world that allow us to see and try their instruments or peruse their music, as well as attend concerts ranging from the middle school level to the professional. It truly is an amazing professional experience that has all directors feeling recharged as they take their podiums again in January. We'll also be taking 5 students with us to the Midwest Band and Orchestra Clinic. These 5 students are prospective music educators who have expressed interest in becoming band or orchestra directors. They will take part in the High School Institute, which is an all-day event geared towards future music educators. The Institute covers everything from leadership training to time in the exhibit hall to live band and orchestra performances. We are looking forward to taking these students and seeing the perspective they gain from that event. With all that said, tonight we have a group of students from our chamber orchestra. We're going to perform just about a 60-second snippet of 7 Scottish Airs by Gustav Holst. This will be a piece that we feature on our Winter Glow concert this Friday, 7:30 at St. Mary Matthias. Before we play, I just want to say thank you for giving us the opportunity to update you again on our programs. The MHS Music Department would like to wish you, your families, and the community of Muscatine a happy holidays, and we'll see you again next year.
Thank you very much. Jonathan, thank you for the time that you spend with these students. If any of you are rushing back to the choir concert, see if they can start late or something, would you? That would help me out a little bit. Next on our agenda are reviewing our board targets and our goals report, which is equally important to help keep us as a board on task. Jerry, I will pass it to you.
Great, and that's a hard act to follow, and I don't have a kazoo or anything to lead into this, but
I'm supposed to save that for pep band.
That's exactly
what I
right.
heard.
But, one of the chapters in the book that we're working with this year, Coherence, talks about accountability, both internal and external accountability. And tonight what we want to do is share with the board our baseline data on the indicators that we had established for our district goals and targets. And You know, the internal accountability is the most important thing for moving a district forward, because that's really what people are working on every day to make for a better program. What drives the work. What provides the passion for the work. The external accountability is what we need to share with our community and to be transparent about how we're doing and what we're doing. So you really need both of these when you're going forward. And Elena has is going to share our data of where we're at. We are excited that 5 years from now we are going to be a lot farther down the road. And a lot of these targets are going to be ongoing efforts. And it's important that we continue to get the right trajectory on them and keep moving forward. Some of these may appear on the new state report card when it comes out. I know they're going to be developing a commission to develop some indicators for the state report card. And some of these, quite frankly, very few people do measure. But we do know that each of those has an effect on the goals that we want to address. So Elena, I'm going to turn the projector over to you and share a way of where we're at on our baseline data and how we got those numbers.
Perfect. As we transition into the next 5 years and watching where we're heading towards our targets, we had to create some baselines of where we're at. So for metrics that we had measured prior, we took either the last 2 or 3 years data, we averaged them, and created a baseline as we move forward. The first target that we're watching is students will graduate prepared for post-secondary options. We'll be monitoring 28 metrics to ensure that we progress towards target 1. 10 of those metrics are based on performance on standardized testing. The first one, as you can see, is percentage of 8th graders algebra ready. We take that off of students who are at benchmark or proficient on the Iowa assessments. We just finished taking our Iowa assessments for this year prior to Thanksgiving. We should get results towards the end of December. So we should be able to update on how we're doing come January. We also look at our ACT to determine percent of 12th grade students college ready. We focus on their reading and their math and whether or not those students are in benchmark in their junior year. We look at the number of students who have tested into the advanced level of math and the advanced level of reading on their Iowa assessments. We also look at students that are reading at benchmark or at grade level from the whole district. Just to cover really quickly some of those baselines that we're at. For 8th graders ready, we're using 63.8. 12th graders ready on the ACT in their junior year of reading, it's 36%. 12th graders ready at the math is 19%. Number of students at the advanced math level is 16.4. Advanced reading level is 18.6. Percent students proficient is 69.7. Percent students proficient at reading level is 71.9. Percent of students scoring above the state average on the ACT assessments is 28%. Percent of students at AP exams with scores 3, 4, or 5, the baseline is 56.5%. And percent of students taking the AP exams, the baseline was 71.2%, but we know for this year it'll be at 100% since all students taking an AP course will test this year. We also have 10 metrics that are measured on course enrollment or course completion. This is the first year we're offering pre-AP. So the percent of 5th graders taking pre-AP math this year is 36%. Percent of middle school students taking pre-AP ELA is 26.4%. Percent of middle students taking pre-AP math is 24.4%. Those 3 measurements will be measured on August 1st of each year as we transfer into the new year for enrollment. Percent of students assessing online courses, this will be their first year of measurement. Percent of students at the 12th grade with 1+ college credits, our baseline is 20%, and that is based on students receiving credit in concurrent and PSEO courses. Percent of 9th grade students on track to graduate, our baseline is 81.3%. Percent of students graduating from high school in 4 years, our baseline is 81.9%. I do want to remind people as we're looking at these, it's the average of the last 2 years. So our last year graduation rate was higher, but we did take the average of the last 3 years. Percent of students spending 80% or more of the day in their general ed courses, 58.3%. Percent of students below average in 1 or more courses, and that is any student who either received a D or an F as a final grade, 24.8%. Percent of 12th grade students completing vocational academy. 1.7%. Any questions on those?
Can I go back 2 slides? The 12th grade students college ready via ACT math, and the same thing on reading, and I'm sure you said this.
That's okay.
What's the criteria, or how do we get to that percentage?
So it's percent of students that are at the benchmark to be considered college ready, and I believe in reading it's 23, and in math I think it's 21.
So going back to that Iowa assessment
That
number,
would be
correct?
on their ACT.
Oh, from the ACT, got it. Hence why it says ACT.
Maybe the Iowa average, is that what it is? Or the
Got it.
No, they have benchmarks that are considered career readiness.
By
As
the
they,
state?
yeah,
Yeah.
on each one of them. So it's the percent of students who meet that benchmark.
Do we have available, or how hard would it be to be able to break this out and see it by free and reduced rate? Is that, or to break into some of those subgroups that we look at?
The ACT offers a couple subgroups. They do it a lot by gender or ethnicity. Free and reduced, they don't, because we don't mark on the students' ACT test whether or not they qualify for free and reduced.
Okay.
We could extract all the names if we wanted to and figure out free and reduced, but that would take a little bit of time. We can certainly get that.
If it really takes a little bit of time, but if that's a 3-day process that you all can evaluate if that's worth, it's always interesting to see some of those as well, what that looks like.
We could certainly do all the Iowa assessments and the AP test by free and reduced.
Okay.
The last 8 measurements are determined by other factors. A lot of these are year 1 of measurement. Percent of students showing 1+ years of growth on their PEP. All of our students who receive at-risk services or Title I services have a personal education plan where they set goals. And we're going to measure the level of growth that happens from those PEPs. Percent of students on track with vocational planning. Percent of 12th graders who complete post-secondary applications. 12th graders completing the FAFSA, the baseline is 59.1. 12th graders enrolling in Iowa Regent colleges without required remediation. This will always be a couple years behind. The state releases 5 years, but it's usually about 2 years behind. So this is based on 2010 through 2015 graduates, and that is 64.5%. Students gaining a vocational certificate prior to graduation, it's the first year of measurement. Percent of students present, 95% or more. The baseline is 84%. And percent of teachers present, 95% or more. The baseline is 38%.
If I'm reading that correctly, you're saying that based on 84% of our students are there 95% of the time,
Or more.
and 38% of our teachers.
Are there 95% or more?
Is that right?
And that would include, I assume, though, any kind of professional development, seminars.
Sick leave, yeah.
Okay.
We factored all reasons for absences.
Yeah.
But that would be the same for the students, correct?
It's a big difference, though.
Right.
It's a huge difference.
It is.
Yeah,
Huge difference.
The difference for students would be, and I think, students, if they're on a school activity, they're not absent, but teachers wouldn't be counted absent for school activity either, so that would be
Okay.
the same.
But the same reasons, I mean,
Yeah.
the students are there more often than the teachers.
One of the reasons it's an indicator is we know that that's an area that we want to see improvement in.
Do we have any idea why, or what that looks like, or are there any trends that you've seen, or?
Well, when you look at the historical data in Muscatine has been fairly high absent rates.
Okay.
And that would hold true for classified and non-classified folks. So, part of that is just, in some cases, making sure people are aware of how important that attendance is. I know Jill has had conversations, principals had conversations with folks reminding them that this is an employment expectation. So we're working on it. We expect to see improvement on it, but it is one of those one of the easier things to do to improve student achievement is to make sure that we aren't also taking teachers out of the classroom, because these are, if we do things that pull teachers out for professional development during the school day, we're creating, we are part of the problem. So we're trying to, I think we will make good headway on this.
But not to muddy the water, this is just teachers. It doesn't include like paras.
Right, this
it's
is
a pure
just
number.
this is just teachers. Yes.
Thank you.
And so are you able to look at that number and are you able to break it down to see what is a long-term illness? Maybe what is a vacation?
Yeah.
I mean, so that you
Yep.
can also, when you look at that, you're able to say, we know
Yes.
where our biggest area of
And
opportunity is.
when conversations are held, we have that information.
Yep, okay.
Because, and there are times when, because of illnesses in families and various things, and one of the things we're trying to do is make sure that if we can be of some assistance to make sure that we're supportive of that person and do our best to make, also sure that we can improve attendance, we'll do everything we can. We certainly don't want to be heartless to people in difficult situations. We want to also make sure if there's a way we can help that we do.
Lena, I have a couple questions. I'm sorry. If we go back to, I would say, the first table,
Yep.
please. The percentage of AP exams with scores of 3, 4, and 5, is there any way that we can get some sort of detailed statistics about percentages who got 3, got 4, got 5? So that's one question. The second question is the second slide, the percentage of 12th grade students completing a vocational academy. Can you explain to me that baseline 1.7%, please?
So it's been based over the last 2 years where we only had one academy. We had 6 students one year and 9 students another, but it's based on the entire student population, so that's why it's low.
And that's one we knew we would have a really low baseline. But it is also something that we think is pretty important that for a lot of our kids that they can leave with that academy experience and additional perhaps certifications or really a big step towards an associate's degree, that it will be really a good thing for them. So we do want to keep pushing that. We want to keep pushing more academies and more participation.
And that's what I'm thinking now with the agreements with MCSD, this supposedly this rate will start going up by next year or the year after.
That's certainly our hope, yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Those 28 metrics are the metrics that we believe, if we show improvement in all of them, will help achieve Target 1 of students being prepared to graduate for post-secondary. Target 2 will be students will learn in a positive and supportive environment. We will monitor 11 metrics to ensure that we make progress towards Target 2. 7 of those will be based on survey results. As you can see, that'll be the first year of measurement for all 7 of those. It is the percentage of stakeholders feel that first priority of school is student achievement. Stakeholders feel satisfied with student experience. Stakeholders feeling school is clean and cared for. Stakeholders feeling welcome at school. Stakeholders reporting communication is timely and clear. Stakeholders feel school is safe, and students with positive strengths and difficulties questionnaire. The other 4 metrics are measured by other factors. Percentage of students participating in classroom activities. Our baseline was 53.5. We did figure out our 17-18 measurement in October, and we're currently at 61.8%. Percent of students receiving out of class discipline consequences, our baseline will be 13.7. We will figure that out at the end of the year to report this year's. Students reporting bullying and harassment issues, our baseline is 0.9%. And percent of students with 2 or more discipline referrals, our baseline is 18.9%. Moving on to Target 3, utilize, oops, sorry.
Sorry, no, can I,
That's okay.
that bullying harassment, is that, I don't know why, but it feels like we're talking about that a lot. It just didn't, this feels like it's low? Is it just
Well,
non-reporting?
and part of that
or
is bullying is a fairly specific activity. And it's one of those, harassment isn't necessarily bullying. Fighting isn't necessarily bullying. It needs to be that person in one student in a position of power or in continued aggression towards a person. So it gets to be a little more technical in its definition. Now, to the student that's being harassed or, those kind of things, it all feels pretty much the same. And what we want to get to is really addressing the core of that, which is behavior towards others needs to improve, period. From Facebook stuff to, names on the playground to those kind of things. We just need to really work with our kids because those are baseline employment skills. And just human relation skills that people need. And that job is always getting a little bit tougher, but it is something we are marking as an indicator.
Thank you.
Those are the 11 indicators for Target 2. Moving on to Target 3, utilize resources effectively and equitably. We'll monitor 7 metrics to ensure progress towards Target 3. 5 of those are based on financial indicators. Percent of classrooms exceeding state student-teacher ratio average. The baseline for us is 2.62%. Currently in 17-18, it's 11.92%, and the state is 12.32%. Per pupil spending compared to the state average, our baseline is $10,877. The state last year was $11,267, and our estimate for this year is $10,767. Personnel costs, not greater than 80% of total general fund expenditures. Our baseline is 83%, and our estimate for this year is 83% as well. Solvency ratio between 5 to 10%. Our baseline is 19%, and the estimate for this year is 19%. Unspent budget authority between 5% to 15%. Our baseline is 14%, and our estimate for this year is 14% as well. The last 2 are metrics that we'll measure is percent of teacher retention. Our baseline is 92%. For 17-18, it's 88%. Our administrator retention baseline is 86%. For 17 and 18, our baseline is 81%. Those retentions are always hard to understand how we know this year's already, but it's based on the percentage of population that was with us last year that has stayed with us for this current year. So it's safe to say that 88% of our teachers that are currently teaching with us were with us last year as well.
Those are where we're starting, and I can guarantee you it will not be where we end. But these are really, I think, good indicators for us for both internal and external accountability. Education is complicated. There's lots of things that go into it, and we want to do our very best to paint the broadest picture of the work that's being done. So we will keep, as we get updated numbers in those, we will report those out to the board and to the community and try and keep those numbers as fresh as possible.
These are all really good. Thank you for the time that you took to put these together. And I especially like one thing we've not talked a lot about publicly as a board is that per pupil spending. And we don't have a lot of control over that yet. It's also very interesting to look at where we are compared to the state.
Yeah, that we are we are a pretty efficient school district. And because of that, we have the capacity to do some other things that are good for kids and good for the district. So we are very fortunate.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Elena.
Thank you.
All right, next on our agenda is our action and possible action items. The following items are considered to be routine by the Board of Education and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the director so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence from the agenda. Those items are minutes, employment recommendations, and bills and claims. What are the wishes of the board?
I move to approve the possible action items in our agenda.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as stands. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? And the motion carries. We move to the discussion and information section of our agenda, and the next item is a TLC update.
Yeah, and Becky will be providing some details on this. This is the 4th year that Muscatine is participating in the teacher leadership compensation state activity. And we were one of the first schools to receive the grant, and I would say as we have started the process, we knew there would be some things that we'd want to change and take a look at, and that's kind of where we're at right now. We knew that we were going to need to find some way to make sure that we kept some rotation into this process so that we were able to get our good teachers back in the classroom. We wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity for our best teachers who became instructional coaches, that they would still have an opportunity to work with kids. And Becky has done a lot of work in working with a lot of folks to get input on how this might look. And Becky, I'll let you take it away and share the news of how we plan to make this a better program.
Yep, you bet. So in your board packet, you have several documents. You have a job description. You also have what the interview process is going to look like. There is also an TLC FAQ that has 16 questions. And if you read through that document, it answers everything that's in the job description. It just looks a little bit more user-friendly. So as Jerry stated, there's a few changes, and as you know, this year we've moved to a more student-centered direct approach with instructional coaching, which means they are in the classrooms teaching and or co-teaching with teachers, doing coaching cycles, as well as our beginning educators. You'll see in the new job description there is a teaching component. So if you look through there, many of the things are replicated this year, the PD, the coaching cycles, the mentoring, the data, that we will sustain and continue that. And then there is a teaching component, which is 0.5 in the classroom and 0.5 FTE for instructional coaches. We feel that we have really emphasized the professional development with our instructional coaches and really train them up. The exciting portion is now when they leave their TLC instructional coach role and re-enter the classroom, we are going to call that a model classroom. So they will continue to train teachers to have model classrooms that will emphasize excellent teaching strategies for all teachers to come in and observe and work with our teachers. So we're really excited about that component. That is a new component. You will also see the interviewing process is a little bit different. Step 1, if you would like to apply for this electronically, you go to our AppleTrack and you enter your name and fill that out, and then you move on to round 1, which is an in-person interview. And you can see in your packet that it outlines what that 30-minute live in-person interview is going to consist of, and it's basically a screener. And the candidates will prepare a 10-minute lesson. There will be an interviewing team. There will also be a coaching role-playing scenario with reflective questions at the end. So round 1 is our screener. Those that pass through our screener will go into round 2, and that is more of a document collection. And you can see there have a peer review. All applicants will prepare a videotape of themselves teaching. And they'll also be given some data that will be emailed to them, and they will create a data analysis entry plan for a beginning coaching cycle. So we feel that the interviewing process is much more aligned with the role of an instructional coach. So we're pretty excited about that. It has been posted. It is the deadline to apply for an instructional coaching position is end of day on Friday, December 15th. Also, a little bit different, we have a tiered approach now. So our TLC, we have CPDLs and ICs. So with this new model, we have instructional coaches. So we are, it's been suggested that we kind of mold that CPDL into the instructional coach and into the model classroom component. So we don't necessarily have a tiered financial level. So instructional coach, and you can see in your packet what the stipend is for that as well. I know that's a lot of information. The FAQ clearly states several questions that have been addressed through teachers and principals and even myself. And so we've tried to do a really good job of answering those and being very transparent with this process as well. So far, great feedback. We have had a multitude of people apply, so we are really encouraged by that. As a timeline, we're looking at, obviously the deadline is December 15th. Then the month of January, we will focus on interviewing the screener in round 2 with a recommendation coming out of the SBRC, which is a site-based review district committee. That's basically a district oversight committee that is represented with teachers and administrators. So obviously the recommendation will come from the SBRC to Dr. Reby, and we're hoping by the end of January. And then we can recommend those, the new TLC 18-19 team to all of you at the February meeting. So that's what our timeline looks like. Any questions that you may have?
Becky, a
Yes.
couple just maybe clarification. So this will be annual process?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
The second thing, you said that this year, if I heard you right, the TLC will be taking some part of teaching, I
There will
think,
be a
or
teaching component. Could be
component in it.
teaching, co-teaching.
Okay.
For next year,
For
that
next
will be
year.
a,
Yeah,
that
for
will be
next
a
year.
part
Yes.
of each of those assignments.
Yes.
This year, we do have some that are involved with the pre-AP work and are doing
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
But next year, all of the instructional coaches will also have a teaching component.
Teaching component.
Right.
Which I think is a great way to keep,
I love
again,
that.
our very best teachers working with kids and kids and other teachers in a teaching capacity.
That's what I want to say,
Yes,
because this is
yes.
the piece that I most probably like the most so far. So, yeah, we want them to be in the classroom. Yeah, thanks.
All right, well, if any questions or clarification is needed, just send me an email and I will respond back to you. Okay?
We, and by we, I mean mostly Becky, got a lot of input from various groups, the TLC folks, from administrators, from teacher advisory group, and really did a nice job of putting this together. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on our agenda is activities information.
Okay, this is probably where your eyes will start to glaze over, so I'll just apologize from the get-go. But there's a couple of areas in activities that I wanted to have some conversation with the board about, as we are still working through some practices and protocols to make sure that we're meeting state regulations as well as board policy. The state auditor has made a point of reminding folks that activity accounts are to be where school organizations keep their money. And for the most part, that has not been a problem for us. You have to make sure that if a school organization or students in an organization raise money, that it is kept in a school activity account. It cannot be accounts set up with individual student names. It can't be I raised this much and Billy raised that much. It's raised for the public good. And in turn, then those expenditures are made out of those accounts through our process of requests and approvals and bookkeeping records. And we also have a number of organizations in our community, booster organizations that raise funds to support our kids, and they're vital. They're extremely important for us in order to provide some of the things that are provided. So the thing that we are asking is that when booster groups do raise money, that they are the primary folks behind raising the money. There certainly kids can be involved in that type of thing, but we want to make sure that it's clearly a booster activity, and that's what the state auditor would say. We want to make sure it is an outside agency that's raising the funds. Now, according to our board policy and really best practice, that those monies from a booster organization should be gifted to the district. It can be certainly gifted with a specific point in mind. We want to donate $500 specifically for girls' volleyball uniforms, or whatever it specifically might be. But the best practice, again, is that would be donated, it would be gifted to the school, put in that organization's activity account. The request and purchases then go through the school system like any other. That way there is a paper trail of where the money came from, how it was spent, and the approval process. And so we're in the process of putting together some protocols so that everyone understands that. And I don't think that will be, shouldn't change the way business is done for folks. But I think it gives us that protection of making sure that if anybody asks, well, where did that money come from or how was it spent, we can clearly show them how that's done. So that's really kind of probably the easier part. Tom, I don't know if it's easier for you, but the other item that has come up has to do with trips and travel for students. And this is where the state is very clear that if it has to do with an extracurricular activity or a curricular activity, you cannot charge a fee. I mean, that's just, there's only about 7 things you can charge a fee for, and that's, if it's connected to those 2, you cannot charge a fee. We have had and have groups that, get together and say we want to take a trip to Portugal. And they charge kids the fee for going to Portugal, and the board has typically approved that. The thing that we have to work through is if it is a school-approved activity, then a student could say, I would like a waiver. I'm on free and reduced price lunch, I'd like a waiver, and the district would be obligated to pay that fee. Because if it's, again, connected back to curricular or extracurricular activities. The other side of that is we're also taking on the liability of that trip. And even though our policy says we're going to approve it, but we're not liable, you can't legislate away your liability. So that's the other part of that. The only time that we could say a trip that we could charge students for the trip is if it is not in school time and it is voluntary and it has absolutely nothing to do with anything in our curriculum or extracurricular activities.
So pretty much
So
never.
pretty much. So then the question is...
Think of an example. Exactly.
Then we come to our policies that says field trips will be connected to our curriculum. And so, the issue for this is, and Atumwa is an example just recently, had a trip, their band was planning a trip to Normandy to partake in a D-Day, I believe D-Day celebration. And they had this conversation about, well, we can't charge for it. We're going to have to pick up the tab for it. We can't afford it. The board voted to cancel it. So what we want to do is to have these conversations before we're in a difficult spot and figure out how do we handle these things. And so when we get these requests from teachers to take kids on trips overseas that aren't particularly connected to the curriculum, and we approve them, we can probably do that. We could probably charge them for it, but we are also accepting the liability for that. And I think it's important we have this conversation before there's a problem, because after the problem is not the time to solve these things. Now, we've had some conversation with our school attorney about this, and his recommendation is those trips, you still can have those, just the school shouldn't be involved. Another organization can take responsibility for that. They can be the carrier for that. A lot of these trips are really arranged through a vendor, and they, it's one of those, if the teacher gets enough folks together, they get their trip paid for, and they go through this company. I'm not sure how much school has really had to do with that, other than we provided the venue for recruiting kids, and our code of conduct was used to kind of as a discipline tool. So I do not have a recommendation of what we should do with this, but I really feel like we need to figure out how we're going to handle these things, because the number of overseas trips, and Mike, Frank, it seems like it has increased dramatically over the last few years. And that's great. I'm all for international travel. I'm worried to death when I see a trip that we're going to go to this jungle area and walk through, and I'm thinking, okay, if somebody gets hurt, if the teacher gets hurt, we're in a workman's comp situation then, or how and what do we do to make sure that we're protecting the district? I am not against kids traveling. I'm all for it. I'm not against teachers having these experiences with kids. I'm all for it. But I also feel like this is significant enough. We have to make sure that we're within the intent of the law, that we're following the law, and that we are protecting the district. So I don't, like I said, we're still having some conversations about that. Fundraising is another issue. If this is a trip that, again, is connected to the curriculum, fundraising that says that, well, Mary raised this much, so that's much us off for Bill, you can't do that. It has to be, you have fundraising, it goes into a general pot, and it gets, everybody goes or nobody goes. So I don't know if you have any questions. I said I assume this would cause some eyes to glaze over a little bit, but it is so multifaceted between what you can charge fees for, how you can fundraise, what that needs to look like, and then the liability issue. And they all intersect.
So for trips we have on the books this year,
Yeah.
that activities have planned for, those need to go as planned.
Yeah, the last thing I want to do is pull the rug out from
Right.
people and say, oh, sorry, this all changed, because that wouldn't be fair. At the same time, I think moving forward, I don't think we can just say, well, we've always done that, so I guess that's what we'll do, and we'll just cross our fingers and hope for the best. So I don't want to cause any harm to any folks that have been, and we have some folks that have been, they're in the first or second year of planning for a trip down the road. We want to make sure that we do everything we can do to support that. But as we get new requests in, this is the time to say, how are we going to handle these new requests?
So booster groups, as they're raising money, should not be, they need to think about how they're involving students to raise that money. Is that?
Well, the main thing is, if the teachers and the kids are doing 99.9% of the fundraising, it can't go to the booster organization. It has to be, the boosters should be involved in the organization and the organization of it. But if it's just teachers and kids raising it and then sending that money to the booster organization, that is clearly out of the intent of the statute.
Okay.
And Tom, whenever I misspeak, you say something.
And then, go ahead.
The booster group,
Mhm.
okay, fundraises,
Mhm.
but the way I understood what you said was then in order to really give it to the school district, they have to say, I want to buy a fence for such and such elementary school, and we're giving it to that activity account or whatever. Maybe that's not a good example.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Well, Friends of the FFA does a lot of fundraising, and they do a lot of support for some of the FFA trips and those type of things. The best way for them to support that would be to say, here, the group needs $500 for that trip. We're contributing $500 for the trip to
and it goes into
Columbus
the
Junction,
ag
goes
account.
into the ag account, and that's what it would be used for. And then there's that clear paper trail of that money. And then the other side of that is there's some organizations also support curricular academic functions. And we can do the same thing in the general fund, is you can, a group can say, I would like to contribute to the general fund for the science department to buy new microscopes. I don't know if that's a good example or not, but close enough. And that would then would come through there. But our board policy says gifts need to be accepted either by the board or the board's designee. And that makes sense, because I don't think any organization just wants people willy-nilly, you know, you show up someday and there's a piano in your front yard or whatever. Although we could use a piano, if anyone's interested, please contact us. But you know, it's just that element, that making sure that everyone is protected.
So booster groups really can't be the support piece for the trip, though, either taking it out of the school piece, right? So if a booster organization says, we want to sponsor a trip and we'll run it and we'll do all of it.
They could, as long, and again, then it's not the school's trip.
Then they're taking on the liability as a booster group.
And some of the, yeah, I'd say probably most of these companies that provide a lot of these trips, they carry insurance and liability and those kind of things. But that is a question, if I were a booster group, I'd want to respond to. And I don't know if there's an umbrella, I don't know, that's with our policy or.
Well, our booster groups are named in our insurance policy. So muskie boosters, band boosters, football, basketball, all those boosters are. So they fall under the umbrella of the school.
So, but in that scenario, then all we're doing is shifting the liability from the district to a band booster group if the band booster, the whomever booster group, though, is covered under us, right?
And if it's a trip that is connected to an activity, like a band trip, it's going to be ours, because it's connected.
Gotcha. So they're performing, or they're
it's the trips,
or they're doing something.
It's the trips that really aren't connected to something specific that we've been approving, that we probably want to take a look at, and also those that usually have the highest ticket price or the highest cost to the student. And again, if we're doing it, this whole sense of, okay, what is an allowable fee or not needs to be addressed, and is it connected? And
well, yeah, so that would be the other piece. So if it's connected to the learning, though, then there can't be a price tag to the student.
No. So in essence, what they're saying is, if it's part of your curriculum, money should not be a barrier to a kid participating.
Yeah.
And it doesn't say you can't have fundraising. It's just that then the fundraising has to cover everybody.
And if you're trying to earn for a trip 3 years into the future, you don't necessarily know what your enrollment is going to be 3 years into the future either, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, like I said, we have not necessarily cracked the code on this one. Our attorney has a colleague in their office that works with these things, and we're going to bring them in to give us some guidance on this, because we want to do the right thing for kids. We want to be supportive of teachers. We want our students to have all kinds of opportunities. I don't want to be in the Des Moines Register.
Neither do we.
And
you know.
And I'm assuming with the changes that will require us to go back to some of the board policies, maybe, and maybe, I don't know, modify, change, edit, whatever.
Yeah, I think
some of them can be.
Actually, I think our board policies are probably okay. It's just our practice hasn't necessarily always followed the state guidelines, and that some of that has changed. The department head recently has come out and said, you cannot have individual accounts in a student activity account. That violates where we want to go. So these things, there's some things that are evolving with this, but like I said, we do not want to take anything off the table that has been on there and been planning, and we're going to do what we need to do to make sure that those things work. But if we never address this, at some point we're going to wish we had.
Yeah.
And do we have anything planned out further than the 2018?
I don't think so. I don't think we do have anything past 2018. I think I know of some planned for next year. But not that I am aware of. So, and we're meeting tomorrow with a number of teachers at the high school that are involved in some of these things, and kick some ideas around, try and get, the best thing is that we come up with some consensus on what this needs to look like, and so that everybody just knows what is expected.
Right. Any other questions on activity information on such a light topic?
Yeah. It's kind of a bah humbug topic,
Well,
isn't it, this time of the year?
It is. A bah humbug topic that's going to require us to think creatively and find the right partners, right? So there's
Yes.
got to be a way.
There
Gotta be
is
a way.
definitely a way to do this, and we'll come up with it.
Just have to figure that out. All right. So next on our agenda is our Muscatine Community School District Foundation.
Yeah, and I just put this on the agenda again in that I think you received a copy of the Articles of Incorporation of the Community Foundation. We do need, as we've entered this new phase of partnership with the Community Foundation, we just need to determine what is that foundation board going to look like. And, we've had, we've had some internal conversations about it. Could involve this board. We could use the board the accounting, not the accounting, the audit committee, because that group is going to take on a little bit different function in that they're primarily going to be receiving the report from the Community Foundation. So you're going to want folks that understand that information and can ask the right questions for that and can give oversight on that. So it's a little bit different from the standpoint of, in the past, that board really made the investment decisions, and this is going to be more of an oversight committee moving forward. So I just wanted to keep it on the agenda that we probably in January, I'll have a recommendation so that we can have our first reporting from the Community Foundation on how things are going and where things are at.
Okay.
And if anyone has any suggestions on how they think that maybe should look, please. It's an open board right now, so.
For those that might not be familiar with the audit committee, Tom, can you just give a really brief overview of how many people we have and how many times a year they meet? And you don't have to name them. I won't put you on the spot, but
We meet twice a year, generally around audits. First time in the fall during our audit field work, and then the second time will be coming up here in probably January when our FY17 audit gets released. So the audit committee will get together, they'll meet, they'll review with the auditor, and then they'll come with the recommendation to the board for approval. And so I believe there's 4 or 5 people, members of the community, and then 1 board members on that audit committee. And then we'll be, like I said, we just meet twice a year. We review what the auditor's process is when they come out to do their field work, and any questions that the audit committee would have about anything related to the school, financials or processes. So
they've been really helpful.
Very helpful, yes.
your community members on that audit committee are really talented individuals who finance is their background.
They have the background.
They really, I feel like they give a great, it's a wide variety. Most of them don't have a school finance background. So I appreciate hearing the questions that they ask from their perspective and from their career experience. So I do think we've got great members that
They've been very helpful to me to have
given
them.
their time.
Yep.
What can I ask, when you talk about oversight, can you tell me just more about that? Like, because the Community Foundation obviously doing the investment portion.
They're doing the investment portion.
So what type of oversight would you be?
Well, from the standpoint of, they will report back to us on the status of our account, how, we're from expenditures to revenue, that type of thing. So when I say oversight, I guess primarily the set of eyes that will be, and ears that will be listening to that report in the best interests of the school foundation. Because I have great confidence in the Community Foundation. I mean, that's those are great people, and I know they're going to do great work. But one of the things they told us is, you know, you need to make sure that the school foundation stays intact, that it should not go away even though we're doing this function. And so I do want some folks there that can engage with the community foundation on the status of our funds, if there's any issues that we need to be aware of, and ask the critical questions. So that by oversight, that's the kind of oversight. Okay. It's not a, you know, they don't have any fiduciary responsibility to the community foundation.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions on that topic? Okay. The next item on our agenda is the second reading on, this is the shortest list of policies we've had in a long time. So second reading, so the board has seen this once. This is our second time around. We do a 3-time rotation of looking at policies and providing feedback and information. A couple of these are the recommendation is for deletion, not because they may not be important, because they are probably included somewhere else. It's possibly a duplication. So here's what those are. 504.6 is participation in athletic events, student attendance, recommended for deletion. 505.3, communicable diseases. 506.4, graduation honors. And 601.25, homework, recommended for deletion.
I think most kids would vote for that.
Yeah. Sounds too good to be true in just that little snippet. So if you have any comments or questions or feedback, let's be sure that you forward that to Lisa. Part of the homework deletion is that it was not required by the Iowa Association of School Boards to be a policy
It
per
is not.
se.
It is not a deletion of homework,
That's
but
right,
a
it's not-
policy that addresses an instructional strategy.
Right. Still, homework is still important. So, so that's the second round of our the reading on those policies. The next thing we have is our October financials.
Okay, September 30th, treasurer's report's being presented again. It's revised due to a correction in our ending school nutrition cash balance. October treasurer's report, I'll just point out, you know, this is the, we received our first half of property taxes in the general fund, management fund, and PEPL. That's why there's large revenues in those funds. And then the agency fund, which is the school acts as an agent for early retirees that are on our health insurance, and because of the timing of the payment received from health savings accounts, it's usually received right after the end of the month, so that's why there's a larger negative balance in the agency fund, but it should really zero out at the end of every month. So then the next page is the beginning of our general fund revenues through October, revenues and expenses. And I've nothing to point out in that section. And then the next page is just the difference between what's actual and what's budgeted. And then the next page is our budget month by month. So that's what it's comparing to. And we're still on track to, in the general fund, for both revenues and expenses. And then the next page is our unspent authorized budget, just keeping you up to date on that. And FY18, we're still in, I mean, based on our line item budget, we're in good shape to end in that percentage of unspent authorized budget is of, actually it's going to be a little higher, but obviously that can change between now and May or in June. Then I'm presenting October activity fund report, and it looks a little bit different because of how I can get this information out of our finance system. So it's just doesn't show you the actual October, it just shows year to date by those individual funds or activity funds. And and then it just goes down district-wide, middle schools, central, west, and then the high school. And I'll just point out about the co-educational athletics at central and west. Really, we combine that, so there's just one activity fund for middle school. So it's just, I need to make, just make a correction to that. So it should just be combined up with what's under the middle school, if that makes sense. So we didn't want to have two separate athletics, one's west, one's central, because it's really combined. And the same with the drama, because it's one middle school production, so we just combine those. And then looking down onto where it starts 3010, Muscatine High School, I know that the instrumental is just a coding error, that something got coded to our activity fund that should not have, so that needs to be corrected. And then I put a box around all those related to athletics, co-educational athletics, activity tickets, athletic donations, sports calendars, and athletic tournaments. Historically, we've kept all of those separately here at Muscatine, and so they're still separated, but we're gonna look at possibly combining into one athletics, so we don't always have to make transfers, because obviously we code everything through co-educational athletics and then make transfers as needed, I guess. So that Muskie Booster Club, that is negative because we make purchases based on items that the Muskie Booster Club is going to donate to our activities. And so we request that, I guess, donation quarterly or monthly or whenever. So we actually have received a good chunk of that, I know, since the end of October. So that's the activity report. And then the last page is just school nutrition through October with total revenues and expenditures, and then our participation numbers. So that's all I have. If there's any questions, I can take them, or.
Any questions for Tom? Thank you for that information, Tom. Appreciate it. Just a few announcements before we finish then for the evening. So finals, as we heard our student council talk about, finals at the high school are coming up. And I believe that would be next week, if my calendar serves me correct. So then on December 21st, we have a 2-hour early dismissal for our students. And then December 22nd through January 2nd, 2018 is holiday break for our students. January 2nd, 2018 is a teacher in service. January 3rd of 2018 starts the first day of second semester and when our students will head back to school. And our next board meeting, our regular session, will be here at 7 p.m. at City Hall, and that will be on January 8th, 2018. And I would say that on behalf of the Muscatine Community School District, the Board of Education certainly wishes all of our families a very healthy and safe holiday season. We'll hope for few or no snow days as we head into the rest of December and January. At the rate we're going without any snow, so far so good. Does anybody have any other announcements for the good of the cause? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
I'm so glad no one left me hanging on that. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? And the motion carries. Thank you.